So I took a week off for content creation and streaming for my birthday celebrations. I was worried doing this in the hype window for Season 14 was a bad idea. Guess I was wrong! Hey, you beautiful Buccaneers, Falcore here. So you've probably heard, and if you haven't, Season 14 had its pants pulled down in front of a crowd of people and everyone laughed at its meat and veg. Season 14 launched in a terrible state, possibly the worst launch update we've had to date in terms of bugs and exploits, and had to be rolled back to essentially a wooden pipe and an edible Pokemon. These features will return at some point, and I'm not going to discuss this in detail too much. I think the community have made their views very obvious. There's no sugarcoating it, it's a literal show at the moment, and I will be covering this in another video. Oh yes, I will be covering it. It goes without saying that I think we can all agree the time for words and promises are over. That ship has sailed. We now need action, sustainable action. And I'm cautiously optimistic the developers can deliver this, as Season 14 slowly starts to rear its head back into what it was supposed to be. Anyway, enough of that. I feel like there is way too much negativity in the community at the moment, most of it warranted, some of it just being plain mean for the sake of it, but I wanted to talk to you all about another problem the developers seem to have developed: not filming their appearances at conventions. In case you didn't know, which you probably didn't unless you went to it, EGX was recently held in London, and Sea of Thieves had themselves a sit-down about the game. Now, since there's no video footage of this event, I'm going to rely on some podcast footage, but keep in mind, convention sit-downs are never this cozy. Now, although most of the talk was about the past year in development, and of course more words on how they're going to fix it, they did reveal some Sea of Thieves hints for the next few years that I think a lot of you will find pretty interesting. Now, before I start, I just wanted to thank a member of the community who came to me with a sort of transcription of what was said during this event. He's an absolute legend for doing this, so thank you very much, Mr. Black Duck. So first and foremost, it has been confirmed that Hunter's Call will be getting a massive overhaul, bringing it in line with the current reputation system of other factions, alongside new quests, new activities, and finally getting themselves their own emissary flag. Furthermore, it was revealed that monster hunting will be on the menu, although it was stated that this will be a new spin on what we already have. I did actually discuss this in an older video where I proposed an update for Hunter's Call, the Kraken turning into a legitimate world event rather than an annoyance in between world events, bringing back the Megalodon hunting from the Shrouded Deep adventure, and bringing back the fishing quests from the Festival of Fishing event, alongside adding a high-tier fishing spot that acts similar to a Reaper's Chest location, and the fish you get from here are actual loot items opposed to inventory items, which means they can be stolen. Not a day goes by when I don't hear someone suggesting that Hunter's Call needs an update, so I think this will be very well received by the community. And it brings with it so many questions. If Hunter's Call is becoming a legitimate faction, does that mean it'll have faction-specific loot for the company? For example, pledging to Hunter's Call and diving for a raid would grant you Hunter's Call-specific loot. I imagine things like beast trophies or Siren-related treasures. Pretty exciting update concept. But moving on from that, a lot of talk was made about expanding other factions too. It was mentioned that the Dark Brethren would also become a fully fledged faction moving forwards, and we'd start to see hints to this very soon. A lot of talk was said about expanding and even introducing new factions into the game, as well as adding missing emissary quests for factions that currently don't have them, such as Reaper's Hideout. It wasn't stated, however, that these factions would be player factions, just that they'd merely become a faction. Whether you could represent them or not was not said. But then, the Phantoms are essentially a faction, but they've never referred to them as one. So I'm hopeful this means we'll be getting new trading companies and perhaps new ways to play in the future. Example here, wouldn't it be great if the Dark Brethren were a third faction for Hourglass? Lastly, it was revealed that the storyline will be returning. It was not stated in what form this would return, but they did state that we're finally going to see a lot of loose ends being tied up concerning the story arcs of many well-known characters. So I imagine we'll finally be able to see what the Dark Brethren and Briggsy were up to for all of this time, which would also be a great segue into introducing the Dark Brethren in as a faction. It was also mentioned that Pirates Life 2 is not off the table, it's not currently in production, but there's a chance that the silly Disney pirate could return. It all sounds very cool, to be honest. So hopefully that puts a silver lining on that very dark cloud surrounding the community at the moment. Good things are coming, but as I stated at the start of the video, words aren't enough now. We need action. But at the very least, it shows that the developers are still very passionate about their game, as we all are. That's why we get so angry when things go wrong. That is, after all, testimony to how successful this game is. If all these problems were happening and there was no one around to complain about them, that in itself would speak 1,000 words, if you get my meaning. Anyway, as usual, thanks for watching, folks. Throw a thumb and a subby click if you like, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Happy sailing.